Positive economic data out of the US has failed to provide a boost to stocks in Asia, as worries mounted that Greece will be forced to default on its debt. Greek Prime Minister George Papandreou replaced his finance minister today in a cabinet reshuffle, but there's little hope that will do any good. As James Legilia reports, there's now talk of a Lehman effect amid jitters in the global financial markets.
When countries don't manage debt, the trouble reaches far and wide. And that's what's happening now with Greece.
Greece has a long way to go. With a population of 11 million, it has a debt of nearly $500 billion. And investors worry if Greece defaults, that could be the first domino to fall in a new global debt crisis.
It's not just Greece, but also Ireland, Portugal, Spain. And Spain's economy is in deep trouble.
The unemployment rate in Spain has soared to 21%. Tiny Portugal also has a debt of nearly $500 billion. And Ireland's debt is almost equal to its annual economic output.
And the banks in Europe own that debt. And the banks globally are all interconnected.
The biggest holders of that debt are German and French banks. President Sarkozy of France and Chancellor Merkel of Germany met today to discuss releasing more bailout money to Greece. But in the worst-case scenario, economists say, the Greek debt crisis could become Europe's Lehman Brothers, a catastrophic failure that freezes the credit markets and infects the U.S. economy.
The stock market would likely fall, the credit markets would tighten up, the economy slows, job creation slows, so it would not be a happy scenario.
What's the story here?
Do you really want to know?
I'd love to know.
Well, I'll tell you, it's like what has happened all over the Western world for the last 20 or 30 years. Greed, greed, and more fucking greed, and cheap money. And in Ireland, it's a tragedy what happened to the Tiger. We have, I'd say, 4 causes. We had a stupid fucking government. We had a regulator that was asleep at the wheel. We had very deceitful and conniving and corrupt developers. And of course, above all, wanking fucking bankers. Wanking bankers. We had these arseholes that for the last 20, 30 years are getting these massive bonuses, these employees and directors of banks, on the misfortune of the working class and getting these huge bonuses and salaries. But, you know, if you and all these arseholes should be thrown in jail and the keys thrown away for the rest of their life. And you know, sir, if you went in and you're unemployed and you wanted to take a loaf of bread out of a store or a supermarket to feed your family, guess what? You'll be up in court for it. These assholes are living all over the world now on the backs of the misfortunate working people.
Former Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan warns that a default by Greece is almost certain and could spill over to other parts of the global economy. Greenspan spoke to Charlie Rose at a Bloomberg Link event.
Sovereign debt of these peripheral countries is held very heavily by the European banks. And to the extent that Greece defaults and it spills over into the other peripheral countries, then you've got a situation in which banks will be up against the wall.
Well, I think we've now got to a stage where you're seeing the Greek government having such difficulties trying to meet the conditions that Europe is setting for its people, cutting budgets, putting people out of work, cutting benefits, and really it's becoming so difficult for them that Greek productivity is starting to go down, not up. So their ability to repay their debt is actually diminishing, not increasing. And in those circumstances, I think it might well be more sensible for the Greeks to say, look, let's have the new drachma, not the euro. We can devalue, we can have export-led recovery, and Bob's your uncle. It suited lots of Latin American economies when they tried to peg to the dollar for too long, and I think it's definitely time for us to look at that.
For now, most observers and market participants expect some kind of new aid deal to tide Greece over in the short term. The reason is that the global economy may be at stake. Some are comparing a Greek default to the collapse of U.S. investment bank Lehman Brothers in September 2008, which triggered the most severe phase of the world financial crisis, freezing credit markets and leading to a slump in global trade. French and German banks, the two heavyweights of Europe's economy, hold 55% of Europe's total exposure to Greece. Despite Germany's exposure to Greece, it is the German government which is being the toughest on Athens. Berlin is pushing hard for commercial banks to contribute to the cost of the estimated 120 billion euro Greek bailout deal. The foreign ministry in Beijing weighed in today, saying China's vital interests are at stake if Europe cannot resolve its debt crisis.
But as one Greek economist put it, at this point, not even God Almighty as finance minister can save the Greek economy.